Hey, welcome back to the Big Book Deep Dive here on Progress and Perfection. You can find more information on our website. You can contact us. All the links for that will be in the description below. My name is Eamon. I'm joined by my good friend John. Here we go.
Step 12. Here we are, the culmination of a lot of hard work, not just in the realm of podcasting, but also in the realm of recovery.
If you get to this point, you've done a bunch.
You've done a lot. You've done a lot.
And probably you've done it pretty honestly if you've actually gotten to 12.
Yeah, for
sure. You can
sure.
stumble your butt through some of the early stuff and be dishonest with yourself and others, but most people that keep doing that don't make it this far.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, to get to step 12, to get through the first step, I mean, if we're honest, is like...
That's true.
Is a big... It's a big milestone for people that are on the road to recovery. And I think like step 12, even though it's like this capstone thing, is actually truly just the, I don't know, not to sound weird, but like it's the beginning of sobriety. To me, it's like, you know, when sobriety really takes on legs, and it's the step that really creates meaning and purpose out of the whole reason of why we get sober in the first place. And it's that idea, like, not to hold on to it on your own. It's not just for you. It's for the benefit of others. I know you recently gave a talk at a local church that both you and I attend, to one of the men's groups there. And I was wondering if you cared to share a little bit about sort of the missional angle that step 12 can take on.
Yeah. Part of my spiel there, and it was a brief overview sort of how discipleship and sponsorship overlap. Discipleship in the church and sponsorship in AA and in recovery programs. And it was, for me, going through the steps and then getting to this point, which my sponsor told me, you haven't really worked all of the steps until you've gotten in and taken somebody else through them in step 12. Like that's what you're talking about, that culmination. And for me, what happened in my early childhood and being raised up in the Christian faith, Presbyterian denomination, all that stuff, is I got a lot of head knowledge. It's kind of like treatment, if you want to equate it to the discovery part of finding out about yourself in treatment for recovered people. But I didn't really put much into practice. And so, and I even remember, and I referenced this in my talk, you know, in Philippians, Paul talks about, you know, if you've learned anything, if you've heard and seen anything in me or from me, put it into practice. Like, don't sit around on your butts, like go out there and do something. And that's what step 12 puts legs on very acutely. And it wasn't the first time that I saw like missional work. You know, I'm not ignorant enough to say that, because I did see that in the church, but it really brought it to a personal level for me, to where I experienced it, both the depravity of active addiction and then the recovery thereafter. And then I saw, oh, this is what the church has been like. This is the very essence of what we talk about in the Christian faith, about, you know, just living life on life's terms and seeking out step 11, you know, prayer and meditation. We sought conscious contact with God. We talked about how step 10 was kind of the workings of steps 1 through 9, living one day at a time. All that stuff, all that is the core tenets of the Christian faith. Right. And so it was this huge aha moment for me when I finally and it's like spiritual special ed, right? You know, I'm playing catch up my whole life to get to this point that other people, you know, didn't have to go down this side road that I did to know. But it was this aha moment of, oh, this is what they've been talking about. Like, we truly do exist and have been created for communion with our God, with our Creator, then with our fellow man, and service to them, you know, trying to reach the hand back to those that are coming up behind us that need our help. And so it's this, you know, the analogy I think of is just this vessel, you know, that's what I strive to be. That's kind of the goal, is this vessel. I'm just an instrument from God, hopefully a decent one at my best. But that's the goal. And and so the talk, I kind of outlaid a bunch of the stuff we've talked about in real simple, quick terms for people that were not familiar with the program. But it really does culminate in this step 12 part. And that's the part that those in the Christian faith can really wrap their heads around the most as well. It's like, oh yeah, well, that's like discipleship and missional work. And it absolutely is. We get to act it out in a very specific subset of people with this affliction. And often with interesting nuance, because I did, even in that talk, and I'll shut up with this, but I even talked about how, I don't go into AA meetings to evangelize people directly. I hope that I go in there with something that others can see has been working in my life, and with, the light of Christ in my eye, and whatever cliche you want to throw in there. But I don't go in there talking about Jesus and cramming the Bible down people's throats, because often what I've found, and I know sometimes we differ on the specifics here, so I want your take here in a second too, but often what I find is the people that need Christ the most are the ones that are least receptive to hear about him directly.
For sure.
There at the start. And I'm not sure how well that went over in my talk. I think it was well received for what it was, but that's like often a sticky point, but such an important one for me.
Right. Yeah. It's always made sense to me, like, as I've grown in my faith with the Lord, just how congruent the 12-step model is with Christianity, and like the fundamental tenets of Christianity. Like, there is this sort of discovery, there's a surrender, there's a cleaning of the street, there's repentance, and through those things you gain right standing with the Lord. And then there's opportunity to commune with the Lord, i.e. step 11. And then there's like this great commission, go therefore make disciples, which is basically step 12. Go and share this message with those who are suffering and those who are in need. Of course, the big book states those who are suffering and in need as alcoholics, but you can insert whatever population of people you want in there. And for sure, we're not, and I would never say that we are baptizing people into like a sect of Christianity. No, by no means. But I do think we have this rare opportunity as believers to allow the Spirit to do that work through us, despite us, using the 12 steps as a blueprint. And I agree with you. I think like there is obviously this cosmic rub that I'm sure you have experienced and that I have experienced with people when you try to speed that process up with maybe more poignant terminology that pertains to like Christ or God or Christianity or church. A lot of people become pretty averse to it and pretty prickly to it. And so I do think, there is a timing element to that. And there's a sort of like know your audience piece to that as well. But I still do adhere to like when you get to this idea of like the second and third step, I continue to adhere to this idea that like you need to know the God that you are surrendering to. And I do believe that the Lord can meet even the most prickly people, even in that step. I've sat with people in my office and been able to like share with them, like, and they're not believers or they come from the church and they've rejected the church, but I still share with them that I'm a Christian and like, yeah, I go to church. I believe in Jesus. And they're always respectful of it.
Yeah.
They may not be ready to like go all in on it, but I've got their ear. I've developed enough relationship with them that they're willing to hear me and respect my ability to navigate that. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a, you do you and I'm going to do me thing or not, I don't really care. I'm able to continue to speak the truth in that relationship. Mm-hmm. But I think like there's a relationship, there's this collaborative relationship that's got to be established first, where we can respect each other for differences. So yeah, I mean, but I do like, I don't know, circling back around to the missional aspect of this, like, I think it's a cool opportunity that we have as members of the recovery community to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves, something that's missional. And I've always appreciated just exactly what you said, that idea of like, you haven't worked through the steps until you've helped somebody through the steps. Yeah. I just think that's really a cool opportunity.
And there's nothing else like it either. Because it really is, and it'll talk about it if we ever actually read this. But to see the light come on in people's eyes and to see some actual transformation, it's neat to be a part of that and and this is something that I do miss about early sobriety or early years of sobriety. Pre-marriage, pre-kids, when I had like all my free time in AA, not all, but I was doing a lot more extracurricular AA work. Yeah. Because I had you kind of saw the chain of sponsorship, my sponsor and his sponsor, my sponsee and his sponsee, like generations, if you will, of the chain would be in the same room together sometimes. And that stuff's like super cool. So I do miss that about having now grown up.
Yeah, for sure.
And don't have the luxury of just spending copious amounts of time in rooms like that.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, that just sparked an old memory in me. Also, was it like 12-step calls? Do you remember those? Is that what they were called?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
I did a few of those.
Yeah, I did too. Like you had all this free time, like you were saying, it's 4 in the morning.
Yeah, I'll go over there.
Somebody's drunk and they need a ride. Like, right on, brother. I'm on my way. Or like whatever it is. Somebody's in a crisis. It's 2:30 in the morning.
Now I can't answer my phone at 7:30 in the night usually.
Right.
It's on silent.
Totally. Yeah, it's forget it. Call the emergency line. Good luck, But no, I totally remember those days. Like, my sponsor would like have me on the hook for a 12-step call. I'd be like, you ready? Be like, what are you talking about? It's 2 in the morning. We got to ride. We got to go help somebody.
Red team go.
Right on. Let's go. So that's funny. I remember this. I remember this. That's funny. All right. Are you going to read some of this?
I'll read some of this.
All right. Read some of this for us.
We're on page 89, chapter 7.
Chapter 7.
Working with others. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry the message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up around you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. Perhaps you are not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. You can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. They will be only too glad to assist you. Don't start out as an evangelist or reformer. Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. You will be handicapped if you arouse it. Ministers and doctors are competent, and you can learn much from them if you wish. But it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. So cooperate. Cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim.
I got that idea up there in that first paragraph. You can help when no one else can.
Yeah.
Man, that's so true. Like, it's not to say that, like, people, like, I run into this all the time, like, in the substance abuse counseling world. But, like, people that haven't been there and done that, like, they got no cred. They got no, and I mean, I'm sorry, my brothers and sisters out there who are substance abuse counselors who have no street experience, but you got no cred. You don't, and you can't pretend like you do.
Yeah, you can't fake that.
You can't fake it. And it's invaluable when it comes to recovery, knowing that you've been through it and like you get what I'm talking about. I don't have to try to explain myself.
Yeah.
Because you just get it, and I think that's what they're referring to there with that line, like you can help when no one else can. I'm like I said, it's not 100%, but like I firmly believe that there's a lot of validity in that statement. You can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics, 100%, brother, 100%.
Well, and it's, you never know when you're going to be that last straw in a good way for somebody, where they're at the bitter end and you say whatever it is you say. I've not really 12-step calls, but I've talked with, I can think of one person who is a friend of a friend, and he called me up one time, and this is years ago back in Jackson. He's like, can you just come and like tell your story, like what happened to you? Because my girlfriend is, she's kind of at her wit's end right now. And so I saddled up, went over there and sat with the two of them and just talked for 30 minutes about briefly what happened to me. Now, I didn't save her or anything, but that was the beginning of the end of her drinking. I was a piece in the puzzle. And you never know when you're a critical piece or not. And so that's why we just suit up and show up when we can to that stuff. Because it's very much, I wholeheartedly believe everything you just said. Like, we are such uniquely qualified for this.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, but it is a gift. Yeah.
And we've talked about that a bunch in the past. I'd just much rather not have this affliction, but, I do. And I'm going to try to look at the gift part of it because of that. Top of page 90. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. If he doesn't want to stop drinking, don't waste your time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. This advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they are dealing with a sick person. If there is any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. You need this information to put yourself in his place, to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. Sometimes it's wise to wait till he goes on a binge. The family may object to this, but unless he is in a dangerous physical condition, it is better to risk it. Don't deal with him when he's very drunk unless he is ugly and the family needs your help. Wait for the end of the spree, or at least for a lucid interval. Then let his family or a friend ask him if he wants to quit for good and if he would go to any extreme to do so. If he says yes, then his attention should be drawn to you as a person who has recovered. You should be described to him as one of a fellowship who, as part of their own recovery, try to help others and who will be glad to talk to him if he cares to see you. If he does not want to see you, never force yourself upon him. Neither should the family hysterically plead with him to do anything, nor should they tell him much about you. They should wait for the end of his next drinking bout. You might place this book where he can see it in the interval. Here, no specific rule can be given. The family must decide these things, but urge them not to be over anxious, for that might spoil matters. Briefly pausing here, I will not go so far as to say this is outdated stuff, but there's definitely an overemphasis on, like, we're assuming this is a middle-aged male, very, very alcoholic guy at the end of his ropes, maybe. And this is a very prescriptive method for kind of the stereotypical alcoholic at the time when this was written, 70 years ago now. So, with a grain of salt, some of the details here. Anything you want to add before I go on with it?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. A little dangerous, maybe, for some situations. I'm not sure I agree wholeheartedly with the top paragraph up there, like I do with the first part, but then like this advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they're dealing with a sick person. I mean, the chaos and turmoil that an alcoholic causes within a family system can be absolutely catastrophic. And I think I get the intention there, but I think the idea that you ask the family to just sort of sit back and just try to relax while the chaos spins out of control.
Not so much.
Seems a little bit risky. Best case scenario, a little bit risky with more potential catastrophe than anything.
Well, and just look at the current landscape of society today. At the time of this recording, everybody under the sun knows what Alcoholics Anonymous is.
Right.
AA, NA, SA, CA, all the A's, and then some. It's not like a little organization where we're going out to recruit people anymore. It just isn't. Right. And so I would double down on what you're saying. Like, no, the family needs to tell this person to get their ass to a meeting. Yeah. Like that's not abnormal anymore.
Right. Yeah. And then the other thing I think that's somewhat risky, this idea, like sometimes it is wise to wait till he goes on a binge. Maybe. I mean, I get it.
I don't want to make that call.
Yeah, I don't want to make that call. I mean, they're making that call. But that's what I mean. Like, that's kind of a dangerous call. Yeah. I think to make, because like bad things happen when people go on binges. And I think like, let's just wait till he gets sloppy. You know what I mean? Like everybody can go lower than their rock bottom. There's always a lower place to go. And I do think there can be some wisdom in sort of once you have counsel, you recognize the problem, going ahead and confronting the problem as, uncomfortable and as painful as it may be. I don't know. It seems like that's kind of a risky endeavor to sit back and wait until he wants to get help. I don't know. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I don't know.
I get it too. And oftentimes coming down from a bender, sure, you're in that state of, well, I'm willing to do anything. Remorse. And they're poking at that here, like ask him if he's willing to go to any lengths. And then you can remind him of that the next day and the next day and the next day. But I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. Sure. It's fine. All right. Well, we'll have some more I don't knows here in the next coming pages as well. Top of 91. Usually the family should not try to tell your story. When possible, avoid meeting a man through his family. Approach through a doctor or an institution is a better bet. If your man needs hospitalization, he should have it, but not forcibly unless he is violent. Let the doctor, if he will, tell him he has something in the way of a solution. When your man is better, the doctor might suggest a visit from you. Though you've talked with the family, leave them out of the first discussion. Under these conditions, your prospect will see he is under no pressure. He will feel he can deal with you without being nagged by his family. Call on him when he is still jittery. He may be more receptive when depressed. True, but when was the last time you met well, I guess you in the counseling business, you get family referrals, but sure. I'm not talking to families before I meet any potential.
Yeah. First of all, I love the HIPAA breach that they're recommending in the paragraph. Like,
I didn't think about that.
I just love that. I love that. While he's in the hospital, approach through a doctor or an institution is a better route. Okay, sure, that'll go. But again, different times. Different times. And I think, like, to your point, the family. I can't speak to what was going on 70, 80, 90 years ago. The role of family may have been a lot different within a societal context. As it pertained to mental health, mental illness, those types of things. So I'm sure that this is well thought out. These days, I don't know. Calling him while he's jittery, maybe more receptive when depressed. I just think that's kind of funny. Yeah. We got him while he's down. Let's kick him while he's down.
Let's get him.
Looks like you got big problems.
Quick, tie his hands up.
Right, totally. Leave the family out of it. Let's go behind your family's back. Whatever.
All right. See your man alone if possible. At first, engage in general conversation. After a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. If he wishes to talk, let him do so. You will thus get a better idea of how you ought to proceed. If he is not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit. But say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. If he is in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades. Get him to tell some of his. When he sees you know all about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were, how you finally learned that you were sick. Give him an account of the struggles you made to stop. Show him the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. We suggest you do this as we have done it in the chapter on alcoholism. If he is alcoholic, he will understand you at once. He will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. If you're satisfied he's a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. Show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. Don't at this stage refer to this book unless he's seen it and wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusion. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can if he's not too alcoholic. But insist that if he is severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself.
Any objections in here?
No, I mean, for most of the rest of these next couple pages and what we've done, I mean, it's really just trying to guide someone through their first 12th step call, if you will. Yeah. And by and large, again, the generalities here are very useful, and we're getting into more useful stuff because most of this still holds water. You know, this is generally how you would approach someone blind. I can think of a guy that, I actually met him through somebody else here in Knoxville a few years ago, and we got together and kind of had a rough conversation along these lines, just kind of sharing, if he was going to talk, I was going to let him. And if he got where he wasn't, I was going to tell my story. And, roughly this is how it shook out. Yeah. Planting seeds.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. No objections. I mean, I think it's a beautiful sort of therapeutic technique of how to begin to establish connection, relationship, trust, genuineness, knowing the appropriateness of when to say it, what to say. And I love the idea. I mean, I do that all the time with people. Like, if he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can, if he is not too alcoholic. I do that with people all the time in my office. I'm like, bro, I mean, I don't know. Like, you might be able to, like, go see. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's set it up. Let's set up a test. Let's say you get drink 3 times a week. You have 2-3 drinks at a time. 12-ounce cans of beer, whatever they say. And so we figure it out, and then they come back the next week and they're like, oh, I've knocked it out of the freaking park. Well, more than likely they come back and they're like, I think I might have a problem. Yeah, you might. That's okay. Because now we know now we can go into the next part.
It's worth finding that out for sure.
For sure, man. Because, like, I don't make the call. Yeah. You don't make the call.
Yeah.
They figure it out. Like we set up a reasonable thought experiment that they can execute.
Yep.
They go through the thought process, they execute it, and they come back and they say, yeah, it didn't work. Now what? And now the door's open. So I think that's awesome. And I love the fact that we use the word queer here.
Yep.
I love that. How the queer mental conditions surrounding not queer as in gay. Okay. Queer as in
curious. Well, I was reading Chronicles of Narnia to my kids, and that's how it's written. Like that's just a common adjective in those books.
It's totally fine. What happened? What happened? We can't say queer anymore? Like, come on. It got hijacked? Come on, LGBTQ community. Give it back.
Oh, give us a break.
Give it back. I like the adjective queer. I don't know. Anyways, you can blot that out if you want. I just had to comment on it. Okay, please continue.
Leave it. All right, continuing. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the conditions of body and mind which accompany it. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. But you may talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. You will soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, of the traits of the alcoholic. If his doctor is willing to tell him that he is alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question if he will. Tell him exactly what happened to you. Stress the spiritual feature freely. If the man may be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. All right. How about that? I was pausing there because I've got some stuff marked out and then I've got stuff in the side margin that I don't remember writing. I was trying to read and also read what I had written at the same time. So at some point in time, I marked out stress the spiritual feature freely. And then over here, I've got a note to myself. No, don't talk about God or spiritual stuff at all. Unless you're sure they have some kind of connection with God. So I guess and I remember this attitude that I had back in the day of being real skittish about it for fear of scaring people off. And I'm less skittish about that today because I think to your second and third step points that, if that really is the cornerstone of the entire program, it's pretty important. It is the truth in my life, and it's part of my honest story. And so, no, I'm not going to beat him over the head with it, but I'm also not going to not mention it if need be. Yeah.
I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think there's bigger. What does Paul tell us? We don't struggle against flesh and blood, but the principles and principalities, the spirits of the air, right? So, I do. I think there's a bigger cosmic significance to turning your will and your life over to the care of another God besides the Yahweh God. I just think I don't know how you make an oath, which is basically what that is, to a false God and get away with it. Even if it's under the hopes of let's just get you in and you'll figure it out later. You've still made this oath that you're going to have to deal with at some point in time. And so I just have personal conviction. I just have a hard time misleading someone to create an oath, a bind, with a cosmic spiritual element other than Yahweh.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's some bad juju. There's something.
Yeah.
It just that doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. Like that's whatever. Some people would say hyper spiritualized, but I mean, it's just what I believe. And I think there's a lot of, I don't know. I think people haphazardly make these types of oaths with the fallen gods and the fallen angels when they don't even realize they're doing it out of the best of intentions. And sure, later on, they may come to profess Yahweh as the Lord, but now they got to play cleanup on these past oaths that they may have made that have eternal ramifications if they don't deal with them. I don't know. Maybe I'm, shooting off bangers here.
That's deep.
Where we're not looking for bangers to be shut off, but I have a hard time with passages like that in the big book. I just, personal conviction out there. So that's
fair.
That's my thoughts.
All right. When dealing with such a person, you had better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. There's no use arousing any prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which he may already be confused. Don't raise such issues no matter what your own convictions are. Your prospect may belong to a religious denomination. His religious education and training may be far superior to yours. In that case, he's going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. But he will be curious to learn why his own convictions haven't worked and why yours seem to work so well. He may be an example of the truth that faith alone is insufficient. To be vital, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. Let him see that you are not there to instruct him in religion. Admit that he probably knows more about it than you do, but call to his attention the fact that however deep his faith and knowledge, he could not have applied it or he would not drink. Perhaps your story will help him see where he has failed to practice the very precepts he knows so well. We represent no particular faith or denomination. We're dealing only with general principles common to most denominations. So, and we'll stop right there for right now, but further down the trail of what you were talking about, of trying to skirt the middle ground, trying to talk about faith and religion without going all in. And that is a difficult line to walk. And I'm almost grateful to my previous self for having just marked out that no, don't talk about it at all at this point in time, especially. Because at this point in time, this is talking to a new prospect. Probably knows about Alcoholics Anonymous. Probably knows about the steps, at least in name. Who knows their position in religion or faith? I think, personal conviction here, I think it's better to leave that on the sidelines and get them physically sobered up to a starting line.
100%. Agreed.
And if that means, okay, we leave all the God stuff alone.
Agreed.
Leave it alone.
Agreed.
And if that means, okay, he is interested in hearing this, absolutely. Let's share what pieces are appropriate of my story, how I've come back to faith. Because I've had both of those play out with different brands of people, if you will. Both are equally effective to hopefully get them in the doors of recovery somehow, some way.
Right.
And then we tackle the deep stuff, right?
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, again, I think like the second and third step or the second and third step, the first step is the most crucial step. You've got to get your foot in the door. And it's not appropriate to spiritually bash people or introduce theological principles or anything that might be spiritually confusing to the person when, like, dude, I'm just drunk.
I'm just drunk. I need to stop hurting.
Right.
I need help.
And I just need help. I think that's where a lot of Christians misstep, because the first thing they offer is like, well, you just need to pray. Like, let's pray. And the guy's like, fuck off. I've been praying for 20 years. It's not doing anything. Right. Because like, even in that idea, it's that idea of faith without works is dead. You know, they want to see it, how it has worked out in your life. It's kind of like that idea of like, as I think most alcoholics and addicts are, like, they're skeptics. Like, you can tell me till you're blue in the face. I want to see it. Right. And so I think like, as you get the person a little bit more grounded and stabilized, they go, why were you so kind to me? Like, why have you paid so much attention to me over the past 6 or 8 weeks? You know, and then you have the opportunity, because suddenly your faith is based upon work. They've seen the work you've put in, and suddenly you're like, man, this is just the lot the Lord's called me to. And a comment just as simple as that is like,
that's a thinker.
Right. I get it. Now I get it, because I've been seeing it, and it's been very curious, and it's felt different to me, and it's nothing anybody else has ever offered me. But that's really interesting. Tell me more about that. You know, and it's like, not yet. Let's get through step 1. You know, and so I think like the process, the timing of step 2 and 3 is perfect. And I think it echoes what this passage is saying and what you're saying to be true. Just that idea that like, you come in heavy on the front end, all you're going to do is piss people off and make them even more resentful towards believing and towards faith. But if you trust like the Lord and the Lord's timing for this purpose, for this person, and just trust the step process, then you get there. You get there in step 2 and 3. But I still say step 2 and 3. I just can't buck it. I can't buck it.
Well, and it's no coincidence that there are 3 chapters basically on step 2.
Yep. That's right.
I mean, if you remember how much time we spent with that as the central theme of what we've been reading in those early chapters, because it's such, you know, it's a stumbling block for those that don't believe. AA tries to make it all inclusive for anybody. And then we, as kind of our unique niche of Christian recovered alcoholics and addicts, walk in there in the muck of it. And try to do our thing as well. Yeah.
It's good.
Good stuff.
All right, brother.
Pleasure, dude.
Always a pleasure.
Indeed. Until next time.
Next time.
This may be a triple 12 step.
I'm okay with it. I'm good. All right.
I do. Hey, thanks for listening. You can find more info at progressandperfection.com, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.